Good morning. I'm very happy to be here. And we are back to basics. So I'm going to talk about the incision. People think it's something that is not that important. It has problems, but it has rules like everything. And if you build properly your surgery, every step in the right way, you should get less problems, less complications to be more efficient. And the incision should be near square to be self-sealing, and it should be astigmatically neutral. And the entry should be anterior, away from the iris root to decrease the possibility of iris prolapse. And it should be watertight as well. And you can have the incision either superior or temporal. For myself, I prefer the temporal incision because it has advantages. No problem with the nasal bridge, sunken globe, and it gives an enhanced red reflex and less astigmatism because it's more away from the cornea. I don't fix the eye, I just fix it with a super blade, and you have to make like a scratch to go into the cornea in a 2-step, and some people can do 3-step incision. And the placement of the paracentesis should be mechanically more comfortable for you. You should not be too away for that. If you are working by manual to do a chopping, you should not place the paracentesis very far away from your main incision. Otherwise, mechanically, it will be difficultly. Always think mechanically what makes things best for you, what makes it easier for you to work. Don't make things difficult just for simple adjustments of positions of the paracentesis. As you can see, this arrows just tell you the spacing between the incisions. Here you can see a scratch, and then you go into the anterior chamber, keeping the same rules. And you should have the incision tight enough, but not too tight over the silicone sleeve of the phaco tip to avoid complications that can happen, and to make the movement to allow the irrigation to go smoothly into the anterior chamber and to avoid any burning of the wound. So you have many reasons that can make your surgery and your incision very reproducible and very safe, and you can build each step on the previous step, and you can make some wrong things, placing it too corneal or making the incision too long tunnel. This can hydrate during the wound, during your work, and impede your visualization. You can induce more astigmatism. You can have leak if it is too wide. So it's very important to, particularly when you are in the learning curve, just to have something that is reproducible each time to give you the advantages of a proper incision, keeping in mind what you need from the incision intraoperatively and what you need from the incision post-operatively, being a self-sealed incision. So these are some of my residents' videos to show problems if you have a bad blade. But here, even with a bad blade, if you can tunnel properly, you can still do a good incision where you should know where to penetrate the anterior chamber. Here it's a longer tunnel. You can see it's a very long tunnel. And you have to know the width of the keratome you are using. This width of the keratome, if you are using a 2.2 or 2.4 or 2.8, the width is determined by the triangle, the base of the triangle of the keratome. You have to pass it through. Some people will just pass part of the keratome, and it will be a tight wound. And if you have the incision made in a too posterior entry site, you are close to the root of the iris, and this will create prolapse of the iris. And this prolapse of the iris, particularly in the people beginning of surgery, you will start getting prolapse and trying to repose it. And if you don't know how to repose it properly the iris, then you will turn a straightforward case into a very complicated case just because you did not make the incision properly. You can see the iris is prolapsing here and getting mutilated and frail. So although the cataract here was removed by this young trainee, but you can see the iris is mutilated, and this will create other problems, intraoperative and postoperative, to make sure that you can get the iris inside, but it's too late. You see the iris trying to reposit it and creating iridodialysis. Just all this could have been avoided if the incision was made properly. Here you can see if the incision, sometimes even the paracentesis, if they are made too posterior, penetrating the conjunctiva, you can get conjunctival ballooning. And this ballooning can occur during phaco by itself, and the ballooning of the conjunctiva can encroach on the cornea, preventing you from seeing. Again, it's all about rules, all about understanding the basics of what you should do to make a proper incision. And getting a wound burn is one thing that we should avoid. And the wound burn, essentially, it's not only with hard cataracts. It can occur with any type of cataract if you have a tight wound, because the tip heats and it cools with the infusion flowing through the silicone sleeve. And if you block it during working by having a smaller incision or using continuous ultrasound, and this happens more in harder cataracts, people think that using ultrasound all the time will solve the problem. You can create a wound burn that can prevent you from having a self-sealing incision, can induce astigmatism, so it can make problems intraoperative or postoperative. I'm trying to... So the take-home message, incision is a really critical step for safe surgery and post-operative outcomes, so we have to stick to rules. And tomorrow we have the opening of the Grand Egyptian Museum in Cairo, which will be a big mega event, and we have next week the Egyptian Society of Cataract Refractive Surgery, so whoever still wants to see the Grand Museum can come and see the Egyptian Society of Cataract and Refractive Surgery. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. It was a really excellent talk. I think you started with first of all, we should know the basics. I think you are exactly told. One of the case what you are showing is a straightforward case. In the end, ended up with the most complicated case on the table. The take-home message, I think, whatever the blades available in the market, but how you put the incision is very important. So how you showed the three planar incision, make a one cut, then into the cornea, then you dip in. That really reduces most of the risk. Most of the people doesn't know, because I'm a phaco refractive surgeon. I do as big number as phaco and also ICLs also. Especially when you're putting this kind of incisions, normally previous I used to put direct incision, and the incidence of iris prolapse is very high, especially in very young patients. I think this is so important, especially for the success of the surgery.
Yeah, and it's very important for teaching the younger ophthalmologists, because they think they want to go to phaco directly, and they don't have the understanding that just making an incision can make them into a lot of problems during surgery. And many of the problems they face is related to how they make the incision. And then after they started to do phaco, they start to say, yes, I'm doing my incision wrong. If they don't understand this, they will always get the problem. So it's all about basics. Every step has its rules, and we should follow it to have a reproducible learning curve and reproducible results.